What's up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before you get into the video, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright, y'all, today it is time that we talk Zifty. So we're gonna go ahead and discuss the pros and cons on the Zifty app. Now, before I go ahead and get into this list, if you have no idea what the Zifty app is, I highly suggest that you check out my What is Zifty video. In this video, I discuss everything from start to finish, so you can go ahead and get up to speed on this app. But if you are ready to go and learn more about the Zifty app, you have come to the right place. So today we're gonna go over 3 pros and 3 cons on the Zifty app. So let's go ahead and get into this list. So the first pro on this list we have is transparency. Now, I think I've said this in probably every pros and cons video that I've done about these catering apps, but this is always going to be a pro in my book no matter what. Transparency is going to be key in determining whether or not an order is going to be worth it, and the more information that you are provided up front, the better. Now, one thing they technically don't give you up front is the exact pickup address and delivery address. So they're going to give you a general area of where you're going to have to go ahead and pick up and deliver. But you can usually tell where you're going to have to go if you want to just go to your Google Maps or Apple Maps. Look to see where that general vicinity is. You might be able to tell where you're going to go. But when you do accept the order, you will learn the restaurant name, and that will be key, and I'll explain in a minute. So you're going to go ahead and see everything up front. So where you're going to be picking up, the food total, the mileage that you're going to have to be driving, and of course everyone's favorite, the pay. So again, with all this information, it'll help you determine whether or not this order is going to be worth picking up. Now, to go back to learning the restaurant name, knowing what restaurant you're going to be picking up is going to be very, very crucial, because say for instance, you have an order, you're offered an order for $500 worth of food. You accept the order, then you find out it's Wendy's, okay? Wendy's is a fast food place, so you're probably gonna have a decent amount of food versus if it was a different restaurant, let's just say like PF Chang's. So each order that's $500, it may not be the same in the sense of how much work you're actually going to have to do to complete that order. So that's why that's super important. But you do have enough information to go ahead and determine, like I said, whether or not that order is going to be worth picking up. Now, moving on to the second pro, and that is going to be the pay. So pay is another pro for a majority of the catering apps as well, because you can make quite a bit of money in a short amount of time in comparison to other gig apps. That's why catering is super, super popular. So on average, I would say a majority of the catering apps, you're probably gonna get paid roughly around 30 to 35 bucks. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Like I said, it just depends on the order. But once you start getting your status up on this app, you might be able to snag some $100 orders, maybe $200 orders. You know, it may not happen every single day, but you know, you have that opportunity. Depending on what your daily or your weekly goals are, you know, imagine you go ahead and you snag an order that's 150 bucks and it only takes you like 30 minutes to complete. That's pretty much about half of your day, if not more than half, like I said, depending on what your goal is. Again, not to say that these orders are going to appear all the time, but there is the potential for it. Even those smaller orders, like I said, you get those average ones that's like 30 something bucks. You know, I would take those in a heartbeat over doing a regular DoorDash or Uber Eats delivery. I'm just saying. It's pretty easy money. You can go ahead and knock it out pretty quickly. So, you know, that pay is pretty good. Moving on to the third pro, and that is going to be the food item list. So this might seem kind of minuscule to some, but I wanted to point this out as a pro because unfortunately, not a lot of catering apps actually provide this information to you. When it comes to catering orders, you know, you're dealing with a lot of food. okay? Hundreds of dollars worth of food, sometimes thousands of dollars. So you're relying on the restaurant to make sure that they have everything for you, okay? And there have been some cases where I've dropped off some food and there is some stuff missing, but I have no way of knowing because I don't know what the customer ordered. I can't verify that that's also included with whatever they're giving me. So Zifty actually gives you a checklist at pickup to go down the list and just verify that you got everything. So depending on the restaurant, you may not be able to tell exactly like what they're giving you, but let's just say, for instance, they gave you a bunch of hot trays. You know, you have your rice, your chicken, beef, whatever they order, pasta, all of that. And you notice on that list, there's supposed to be a platter of like cookies or something, you know, and all the food they gave you was hot. So you can go back and say, hey, you know, I just want to verify I got this, this, and this, you know, everything you gave me is hot, but I don't have the cookies. Then they might be able to say, oh, you know, we almost forgot to give you that. Thank you for checking, blah, 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 blah. It just allows you to provide a better customer experience because, like I said, I personally have had a couple of times where I went, laid out all the food, and then somebody's like, I was supposed to get chips. Where are the chips? Or we're supposed to get lemonade. You know, did they not give you the lemonade? And, you know, then they have to go and contact the restaurant, and you know, it's a hassle for them. You asking the merchant saying, hey, do you have everything? You're putting your trust in them, and yes, they should go ahead and make sure that you have everything. But you can think of this as like a fail safe to just 100% verify that you actually do have everything. Now, moving on to the cons. So the first con on this list, we have difficulty in grabbing orders. So I wanted to put this on the list because this is a complaint that I've heard from other drivers as well. And this is just something that I experienced right off the bat as soon as I got active with Zifty. So I get a ton, and I mean a ton of notifications from Zifty. Like I literally just got one right now. I get a ton of notifications from Zifty stating that this order is available. And by the time I actually go ahead and select it, the app is showing that there's nothing available. So it's like, okay, I just seen it. I literally clicked it within 2.5 seconds, but apparently 2.5 seconds was too long. The issue is that Zifty, their orders, a majority of their orders, they are going to be first come, first serve. So once that notification hits, you know, it's probably getting blasted to one, I don't know how many people. And two, that notification, honestly, it might be a bit delayed. You know, a good rule of thumb, unfortunately, if you are getting a notification for an order, it's probably already too late. So you kind of have to camp the app. Just keep the app open. It does automatically refresh after a minute, but you probably want to go and just manually refresh it like every 20, 30 seconds, however frequently you want to. Now, they do have exclusive orders, but they're not going to be at the frequency of these first come, first serve orders. So yeah, that's the only downside. If you are looking for some orders, depending on your market, I'm in a high volume area, so I get a ton of notifications. But if you're going to be in a smaller market that maybe just doesn't have that volume, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to snag orders. So like I said, you might want to go ahead and camp that app, keep refreshing, and hopefully you're able to snag an order. Now, the next con on this list we have is the hard-coded arrivals. Now, this may or may not be a con for some people, but I wanted to put it as a con on this list for a couple of reasons. Now, technically, is this a good thing? Yes, this literally keeps you locked in the order. You have a set time of when you can swipe that you've arrived at the pickup. You have a set time where you can arrive at the drop-off. You don't want to be too early. Obviously, you don't want to be too late. But my problem with hard coding the arrival is for those folks who might want to stack different orders, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. Because say, for instance, you wanted to pick up maybe 2 different orders at the same time. So maybe you picked up from one particular restaurant and you wanted to go ahead and get this Zifty order, and maybe there's like a 15-minute difference in between you picking up both of them. And let's just say it's the same thing for the delivery. There's like a 15-minute buffer. Depending on the order of how you're supposed to go and pick up and deliver those orders, you getting a hard stop on Zifty might affect your time for that other order. So you're literally trapped. You can't go into the restaurant because pretty much what happens when you get to the restaurant, you have this bar at the bottom and it says you can't arrive no earlier than this time. Technically, you could go into the restaurant and say, hey, I have a catering order, but the problem is you can't see the order number until you hit arrive. So if you're lucky and they only have one order, they will probably know which one it is, but they might still want to verify the order number as well. And then, of course, if they have multiple, well, you definitely need the order number so you know you're picking up the right one. You know, you might be able to say, well, I'm picking up for such and such, but, you know, you need that information. Depending on the restaurant, sometimes it takes you some time to go ahead and get loaded up. So if you have a hard stop and you can't hit arrive, you don't know what the order number is, you just got to wait. But what if it takes you a while to get everything loaded up? You know, you have a very large order, you might have to take multiple trips, and then potentially, you could delay your delivery. Usually the apps do a pretty good job of having that buffer in between pickup and delivery, but you know, there is room for error. Nothing is perfect. So you not being able to go in and maybe get a little bit of a head start, it kind of does hinder you a little bit. Now, I know some people, if they're already out and about, sometimes they might want to stop at the restaurant and be like, hey, I have this catering order I'm picking up in such and such time. Do you think you'll be ready? You know, sometimes you just want to make sure, but you can't even do that. It may not be that big of a deal for some people, but it does make it a little bit difficult, like I said, if you're trying to stack orders and just, you know, if you want to try to get ahead a little bit, you know, it can disrupt your flow. Now, last but not least, we have the last con, which is the cancellation fees. Zifty actually penalizes you by charging you a cancellation fee if you cancel an order too close to the pickup, which is completely understandable. You want to make sure that whoever's picking up that order, they're gonna go ahead and fulfill it, you know, because sometimes you might have people that pick stuff up and they're like, you know what, nah, I changed my mind. You know, they kind of nonchalant about it. And you know, I get that. There are some people like that, unfortunately. They just don't care. But I feel like in some cases where, you know, stuff happens, life just happens. Personally, I don't think that there should be a fee unless you've canceled too many times. Like you made a habit out of it. You know, maybe the first time they give you a pass. I don't know if they'll waive it. Like if it's your first time, you know, you have some pretty good stats and you've done like 50 orders and this is your first cancellation, you know, I don't know. But I don't think that the driver should be charged if it's an legit emergency. You know, either car trouble, got into an accident on the way, you know, maybe they had a family emergency that popped up, you know, they got sick. You know, some days you might be good the night before and then you wake up and you're like, I can't tell you. You know, stuff happens. Life happens. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something that I guess it just doesn't sit right with me. Like I said, I completely understand why they would do that. It does deter people from just like lollygagging and being like, you know, I'll pick this up, and then they decide, you know what? Nah, I don't want it. Just keep in mind that you do have a certain time frame of where you can cancel that order. I think it's like maybe 3 to 4 hours before, something like that. Because I think I had an order, it was like I had to pick up at like 11:20 or something, and I couldn't cancel it no later than like 7:20, 7:30. So it's a decent time frame. So like if I woke up at 6 a.m., you know, I could technically still cancel it if something came up. But again, you know, life happens. So just wanted to go ahead and point that out. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got for this video. So these are Zifty's pros and cons. So yeah, hopefully this helps you decide whether or not you want to give the Zifty app a try. Now, I've actually been signed up for about 2 years on this app, but I just recently started doing Zifty, so I'm learning more and more every single time I do an order. But personally, I think it's a pretty good app. I think it's a good app. I don't want to say it's the best in comparison to, you know, the other apps that I've tried, but it's a pretty good app. I definitely keep it in my rotation, and if you haven't signed up, I would say go ahead and give them a try. I know a lot of people are saying that there is a wait list, but keep checking in. Opportunities do open up from time to time. So yeah, just keep checking in. Eventually you'll go ahead and get in. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this list, and if there's anything else that you like or dislike about the Zifty app, you can go ahead and share your thoughts and just let us know in the comment section below. Now, before I go, I have to remind you guys to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.